told us, and we pushed at the prosecutor's office pretty hard, and Tom Starwalt put Bill Kaiser on the second investigation.
And then Bill Kaiser spoke with, I think Bill Kaiser spoke with 2 of the 3 witnesses, and then arranged to conduct polygraph examinations of the 2 witnesses at a BCI office, a State Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation office in Bowling Green.
Correct.
And the polygraph examiner determined that those exams were, the results of those exams he found to be truthful.
Correct.
The county coroner would never talk with you about why this death was ruled an accidental suicide, which, we've keyed in on that phrase, Emil, accidental suicide, because they seem to be 2 words that can't go together.
Right. Well, and 2 pieces of information that can't go together, which is that they believed, or they ruled, that he shot himself and that in the head, and he may not have known the gun was loaded. So you can't commit suicide. The definition of suicide is that you intended to kill yourself and you killed yourself. Mm-hmm. You can't not know the gun was loaded,
right,
if you're committing suicide.
And then just that alone, also you're in a home with at least three other people. I mean, if you were intending to commit suicide, you would do it in a private place. You wouldn't do it in a home with 3 other people. While you're on the phone, was he on the phone at the time your son was shot?
He couldn't have been on the phone. His phone was recovered from his right front pocket.
Okay. But he spoke to a friend shortly before.
Was talking to 2 other friends.
Okay. So that doesn't seem to be an indication. He didn't tell the other friends, I'm sad, I'm depressed.
No, they were waiting to get together that night.
To be together, to socialize. So there's no indication from his behavior previous to his death that he was depressed or he was having problems other than what any normal young person in their 20s, he was 19.
Yeah.
You had no indication that there was a problem.
There was nothing, Matt.
Mm-hmm. And you don't believe your son committed suicide?
Absolutely not.
And you believe that the information that you've been able to compile without any cooperation from Sandusky County officials, because of the work you've done and your wife has done, and your attorney, Mr. McGookie, that you believe that something other than what sheriff's deputies say happened is what actually happened. Something else, not a suicide, not accidental. Jacob wasn't holding the gun?
The science says no.
The science says no. And you have an indication of that because you were forced to hire Dr. Cyril Wecht to conduct an autopsy after County Prosecutor Thomas Steerwalt refused to ask for one. Dr. Wookey, the county coroner, refused to order one. So you asked for about how long did you ask for? There were several months, I think you said.
How long were we
asking for an autopsy before you?
Well, according to the emails that I've got here to Tom Steierwald, like I said, that it was over a 3-week period in May. In fact, at one point I said, Tom, I need to set a deadline here, May 25th. That day came and went, and no favorable reply.
So you're looking at almost 3 months later.
Yeah.
And you still don't have any answers. Right. You have not gotten any responses. So you were forced to conduct your own autopsy, hire your own private pathologist, which you did, and that autopsy result from Dr. Cyril Wecht indicates that Jacob could not have been holding the gun. Suggested at least.
Well, I think what Dr. Wecht has concluded that there's, in all likelihood, Jacob was not holding the gun.
And in all likelihood, Jacob was the victim of a homicide.
That was Dr. Wecht's conclusion.
Right. And have you? So after you filed the lawsuit, I think Dr. Wookie ordered a coroner's inquest. Is that, at one time they were calling it that?
By force.
As I recall, well, first of all, let me backtrack a little bit and just help my own memory of the sequence of events. I believe it was in November when finally the sheriff's deputies went out and retrieved the bullet from the attic.
The
of the
bullet
home.
from the ceiling, right.
So the timeline, I guess, would be that we had the autopsy done, and by the way, Dr. Wecht was referred to us by Ohio State Medical School. That's the source to which we
Right.
went because the public officials wouldn't have an autopsy
Right.
done. So we contacted Ohio State Medical School. I quite frankly thought that they would have someone there, a forensic pathologist, who
Right.
would do this.
Right.
And they said they didn't, and they referred us to Dr. Wecht.
They were more of a learning school.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then that was in September. As I recall, it was in October where, through communications with Tom Steyerwalt and reporting in the paper, by the way, that Tom had agreed on behalf of Dr. Wookie that they would begin a coroner's inquest and that they would have a full, open, transparent investigation.
Okay.
And in
So-
effect, that was the third
Right.
investigation.
So we had the initial investigation the night of Jacob's death. We had a second investigation from William Kaiser, who is an employee of Steyerwalt's, the prosecutor's office. We had a third investigation, which is effectively the coroner's inquest,
Correct.
which was being conducted by Sean O'Connell,
Correct.
a Sandusky County Sheriff's deputy.
Right.
And you had a promise that they would be transparent
Yes.
once that third investigation started. Have they been transparent?
No. In my opinion.
Well, let me read something that we received from the detective who's conducting the coroner's inquest investigation. This is an email that I received from Sean O'Connell. And there's a number of things in this email that are very troubling. And I'm just going to read a few of them. I had questioned in a column, suggested that there had been clothing that had been discarded and not retained as evidence, just as the body had not been retained as evidence. There was no examination. And Detective O'Connell took exception to that phraseology in a column last Sunday. And this is just a parcel of what he wrote in his email to both Dan McGookie and to myself. And I want to read this. This is specific to whether a sheriff's deputy threw out clothing. And what the detective says, he doesn't understand that statement in my column. And he says, I would like to know, oh, that's a different one, wait a minute. Oh, I lost my place. Oh, here it is. He quotes the column, a sheriff's investigator at the scene threw away blood-spattered clothing that one witness was wearing when Jake was killed, trashing evidence away and burying it too. That was from my column. And O'Connell continues, my question to you, sir, is what evidence might that be? I do know that a person, a witness who was in the home, had blood spatter on his shoes from being in close proximity of Jacob at the time when the unfortunate gun went off. Lewis, when interviewed by deputies, and voluntarily threw his own shoes away as it was a ghostly reminder to him what had just happened. So the sheriff deputy had nothing to do with the evidence being discarded because the witness voluntarily threw it away in a trash bin at the Sandusky County Jail. And this is how this detective explains why that was wrong. And I find that ridiculous, and I don't know how you feel about it. Is that transparent, Mr. McGookie?
You should have been a lawyer.
Is that transparent?
I would say that's not transparent.
This email from this detective is nothing more, in my opinion, than the same thing this family has dealt with since March 2nd. It's just the same and more. And to make that kind of statement that a sheriff's deputy had nothing to do with evidence being thrown out because a witness did it is just ridiculous. I don't understand how you do this to a family that's been waiting 11 months for some answers and has been patient and was promised transparency, and then this is what they get.
Well,
So why don't you update where we're at right now?
well, if you don't mind, I think I
I'll
will
get off my
comment.
soapbox.
Well, I will comment on what you just said.
Okay.
And I want to make this clear to everybody. And if the law enforcement community at Sandusky County is listening, and hopefully they are, I want to repeat what we've said a number of times before. It may be one of the cruelest ironies throughout this 11-month torture period for the Lumberiuses has been that all they're seeking is the truth about what happened to their son Jacob that night. Here we are, in a horrible twist of irony, that we have to file a lawsuit to get to the truth, because the public officials, it is fair to say, just weren't doing it, okay? Now, as if that weren't bad enough, when we filed this lawsuit in October, after I had been involved since April, so it wasn't a rush to a lawsuit here. I just read you some emails to Tom Stirewalt in May. It wasn't until October that we filed this lawsuit, and I had been involved in this case after the family had been rejected at every turn. I had been involved in this since April, a little over a month after Jacob's death. So here it is, 10 months later after I was involved, 6 months later, I'm sorry, 6 months later after I was involved, that we finally said enough's enough and we filed this lawsuit. And the point I really wanted to make is this, though. The whole purpose of the lawsuit is just, and we have to name, the way lawsuits work, is we have to name somebody as a defendant.
Right.
And that defendant is Dr. Wookie. We're not looking for damages from Dr. Wookie. We're not looking for anything from Dr. Wookie.
What is it that you're looking for?
We're looking,
Help to find the truth.
looking to find out what happened. And here we are now, even now, engaged in a battle with the public officials who are sworn under oath to do what we're looking to do and have to do ourselves. We have to sue them to either, number one, get them to do their jobs, or number two, stand out of the way and let us do it then. But even then, even now, we're running into roadblock after roadblock after roadblock from the public officials who are supposed to be doing what we have to do, because they're not doing it, and they're throwing up every roadblock that they can.
Right.
It's an unbelievable situation.
Yep. And the detective who sent this email also mentioned that his interaction with the family, he was told that it was very cordial. They were very pleased with what Sandusky County officials had done, which makes no sense since you had to file a lawsuit in order to get some answers that you still don't have. I just don't understand. Emil, I'm going to let you ask some questions because I'm on my soapbox. I need to step down.
Well, I think that maybe we can go back to whether you guys were pleased or not. I don't want to contradict what you just said, but I will say that when they put, and I think you guys can agree with this, when they first put O'Connell on, I think that he really got after it for at least a couple weeks.
We had hope.
I mean, because he went, I mean, as soon as that inquest, the coroner's inquest started, would have been in November, is that right? Because you had depositions scheduled, and then they,
Yes.
on pressure of the depositions, they caved and they started the coroners. And that was kind of the trade-off, was that you back off on the depositions.
That's correct,
if
that's
they
right.
would start
Well, actually, Tom Stirewalt, who sought a court order, and the court granted that order to stay the depositions at that time. We, as I recall, we may have filed the lawsuit, and then at that point, they had agreed to the coroner's inquest, and then when that didn't seem to be going forward, I think is what happened. It was in December, I believe, that we reset the depositions, but then Tom Stirewalt sought a court order blocking the depositions.
Right.
So
Mr. Kaiser also sought a court order at one point, I think. Could you talk about that?
Well, we've resolved it. Unfortunately, there was a misunderstanding, I guess you can call it that. I was out at his home last week, and the reason I was there was because as an attorney, I am an officer of the court and I have the power to serve a subpoena. That's the first time in 33 years, other than 2 days before on some of the other witnesses in this case. But this case, just last week, was the first time ever in 33 years I've had to serve a subpoena. And believe me,
How'd that go?
it went fine except for, except for Mr. Kaiser. But
Mr. Kaiser took exception to being served a subpoena, and he requested a civil protection order against you.
right, and through his attorney now we've worked it out, and they're dismissing that action, and we're just moving forward. Okay.
Okay.
I want to go back to answer, if I may, though, your question about where we at. I want to go on record and say that we've got a number of depositions set up for next week.
And you think you're going to actually depose these public officials?
Yes, I think they're going to, at least most of them, everyone that we've asked to appear is going to appear, okay?
And who is that?
All of the deputies there were 3 deputies, I believe, who were there from the Sandusky County Sheriff's at the scene that night. We got them coming in. We've got Sheriff Overmyer, and we have Dr. Wookie, and we may even have Tom Steyerwald. I forget whether he's on our list for next week. So
Jim
so there are-
Consolo.
and Mr. Kaiser from the prosecutor's office, and Steve.
Solo?
Yes.
Yes.
Why is he being deposed?
Well, he had some.
Solo is a sheriff's deputy.
Right.
He was the original.
He was named by Dr. Wookie as being the original person named by Dr. Wookie to head up this coroner's inquest.
And Detective Consolo is the sheriff's deputy who took issue with the way Sandusky County sheriffs handled the killing of 27-year-old Brian Jones in 2010. He issued a critical report of the operations of the Sandusky County Sheriff's Department in that incident, but he's been removed from this investigation.
I understand that's right.
I wonder why that is. Any conjecture? We're going to have to take a break.
Okay.
We're going to take a break. This is Between the Lines live at SanduskyRegister.com with Mike Limberios, his attorney Dan McCookie, and reporter Amo Whitus.
Witness.
Oh, you got it. You got it. That's
Okay, we're going to take a break for this message from our sponsor, Terra State Community College.
Get in touch with your inner scientist. Transfer degrees in science, technology, engineering, math, and medicine at Terra State Community College. Start here, go anywhere. Learn more at terra.edu.
Are you the only one still using the book? Get found at Firelands411.com. Half of the internet users today will use a search engine to find a business. Make sure you're found at Firelands411.com, an all-local business directory with phone numbers, addresses, and more. Your customers are looking for you. Claim your free listing today at Firelands411.com.
Find your passion in healthcare at Terra State Community College. Start here, go anywhere. Learn more at terra.edu.
We'll have to look it up while you guys are talking.
I'm ready. Are we on? Just write it down on here. We're back. This is Between the Lines live at SanduskyRegister.com. We're here today with Mike Limberios, his attorney Dan McCookie, and reporter Amo's here. We were just talking impromptu. All of the Sandusky County officials have been invited to appear on this program. I think we invited them when this initially occurred. I invited them when I responded to this incomprehensible email from Detective O'Connell. I invited all of them and replied to all of them to this email. I have not heard back from any of them other than Henry, who's a whole other story. as to that invitation. But we were just thinking about calling Sheriff Overmyer and see if he would talk with us. And Dan, if we get him on the phone, I'm going to let you do the talking. I think. I don't know. We'll see. So we're going to call him right now. We've never done this, have we, Jason? Jason?
Well, actually, go ahead. I can't talk to him because
I'll talk
he
to
is represented by a lawyer.
Okay.
Okay, so I better defer on that.
This is a long shot, but
Yeah, pick up.
it's live TV, sort of. Is Sheriff Overmyer in?
Who are we speaking with now?
This is Matt Westerhold from the Sandusky Register, and we're live on Between the Lines Live talk program. I think I sent you an email inviting you on the program. I'm here with Mike Limberios and attorney Dan McGookie and reporter Emil Whitus. And we're wondering if you can tell us anything, update on the investigation of the death of 19-year-old Jacob Limberios.
I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can tell you right now.
Okay. Could you tell us why there was never an autopsy ordered?
You're going to have to speak with Dean Henry and maybe speak with Dr. Wolf, okay?
Is there anything you'd like to say to Mr. Limberios right now?
The only thing I can probably say right now is I'm truly sorry about the loss, and hopefully we can conclude this investigation and get closure.
Do you think Jacob Limberios committed suicide?
I'm not going to answer that at this time until the investigation is over.
So, but the death certificate says he committed suicide.
To my knowledge, that's what the death certificate says.
Okay, has there been any conversation about changing the death certificate?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Okay.
Why was Jim Consolo not put on the case?
Why was Jim Consolo taken off the coroner's investigation?
That was his choice, and he advised Dr. Wookie, and then after that, Detective O'Connell was then appointed.
Can you say that again, Sheriff? We didn't hear you.
I said that was Detective Captain Consolo's choice.
Oh, he removed himself from the investigation.
Correct. That is correct, sir.
Because we had asked that 6 weeks ago and didn't get an answer.
Okay.
Do you feel this family has been properly treated by the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office and the Sandusky County Prosecutor's Office?
I feel on my end, we have done our best, and I know Captain Meggett at the beginning was really putting forth a lot of effort and trying to do his best, and we're continuing to do the same up until today.
Well, really quick, Sheriff, have you guys instituted any changes in policy since this incident?
No, we have not at this time.
Do you think are you ready to make any recommendations that something like if a gunshot death occurs, you ask for an autopsy?
Well, and Mr. Westerhold, I don't know if you understand, that is the county coroner's judgment call if there's a autopsy, not mine or the officer on scene.
Do you agree?
Yes, Sheriff, but that is based a lot on the evidence you guys collect on scene, I think, isn't it? The coroner's. I mean, you can give advice to the coroner, can't you? As far as what you think, what your ideas are based on what you're looking at.
But sometimes, but you do not ever try to overrule the county coroner.
Okay.
They have their job, that's his job, as well as the other deputies.
Sheriff, was he out at the scene that night, Dr. Wookie?
He was not present. No, he was not.
Okay, that's all.
So you contacted him by the phone and asked him if he wanted to conduct an autopsy because the body was sent to the funeral home. Who ordered it to be sent to the funeral home?
Well, that would probably be the county coroner then. He did.
Okay, but he wasn't there.
That's correct.
So did someone contact him and ask him to make a decision?
Yeah. Captain Meggett was on scene. He was the deputy in charge at that time.
But you were on the scene too, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so you were actually in charge.
Yeah, up until when I left and knew everything was under control. We as the sheriff here the sheriff, we don't go to every incident like that.
But you were there
Correct.
that night. So you were in charge of the investigation.
Well, I was in charge up to the point, but due to Captain Meggett's experience and knowledge, he followed up with the investigation.
Okay, and are you satisfied with Captain Meggett's performance in this investigation?
Yes.
Okay, and I got an email from Detective O'Connell, which he suggested that a witness voluntarily threw out his blood-spattered shoes, basically in a trash can in the sheriff's office. Were those shoes ever retrieved?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, does that statement make sense to you? A witness voluntarily threw out his blood-spattered shoes?
Well, I would have to probably read it over again and probably digest even further. So.
Well, I gave that to you 2 days ago.
Okay. All right.
So you're comfortable with that statement, that a witness voluntarily threw out his blood-spattered shoes?
Yes.
You're comfortable with that statement?
I am.
Was there other clothing and other evidence that was discarded with the permission of a deputy that you're comfortable with?
I would have to review some of the details, and I could probably not answer that at this time.
It's been 11 months. How much time do you need to review the details?
I don't know, but honestly, Mr. Westerhold, I think there's other things that go on, and sometimes you can't remember everything, and...
Well, the Limberios family remembers everything. And what they remember most is that the death certificate says, basically, accidental suicide. Are you comfortable with that phraseology? Accidental suicide?
I'm not going to answer that at this time, and well, I guess we'll have to see when this investigation is completed at this time.
Do you think there's mounting evidence that Jacob Limberios did not commit suicide?
What was that again? I'm sorry.
Do you think there is mounting evidence that Jacob Limberios did not commit suicide?
I don't know until we finish this investigation.
When do you think this investigation will be finished?
I don't have a date on it, but hopefully it's soon, so then we can put a lot of unanswered questions to rest.
Mike, did you have any questions?
No.
Dan, I guess you can't
No.
ask any questions. Emma Whitus, do you have any questions?
Not really.
Sheriff, honestly, did you have a chance to review Detective O'Connell's email to myself and Mr. McGookie?
Oh, I did read it, absolutely.
Did you read it before he sent it?
Yes.
Okay, so then you're very comfortable with what is in here, I guess, because you read it and...
Yeah, I thought it was a thorough email and well thought out. I did.
So, a witness voluntarily throws out his blood-spattered shoes. Sounds like in the presence of a deputy in the sheriff's office, and you're comfortable with that.
Well, I don't think that's not how I would probably comprehend that. It wouldn't be in the. That would. I don't think it was in front of a deputy. I think it sounds to me he removed his shoes because he wasn't comfortable wearing them after an incident had occurred.
So then when the deputy's talking to him, he says, "Where are your shoes?" And he says, "Well, I threw them out because they have blood on them." And the deputy didn't say, "Well, I better go get those shoes because that could be evidence." Would you say that's a shortcoming of your deputy's investigatory practices?
No, but it's something I can go back and look over after this investigation is over.
Sheriff, why didn't you? Why were you guys opposed to turning over the investigation to BCI, or I guess asking them to come help with it?
No, asking them to conduct an independent
Right.
investigation. Why were you not comfortable with that?
Well, because Detective O'Connell is still in the midst of the investigation.
Well, Detective O'Connell indicated to me a week ago, on Friday, almost a week ago, that he intended to turn it over for an independent investigation by Attorney General Mike DeWine. By Monday, he had changed his mind, and you had ordered him that he could not do that.
Well, I didn't order him. Order is a strong term, and
Okay.
I never said the word order.
What did you say?
And honestly, and if you remember and recall correctly, that this investigation was brought together by Dr. Wilkie. So Dr. Wookey ultimately,
But your office is conducting this investigation.
that's correct, by the request of Dr. Wookey.
Well, certainly by the request of a lawsuit filed by the Limberios family as well. I mean, so you're saying that your office isn't conducting this investigation?
No, we are conducting it of the request of Dr. Wookey.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this, Sheriff. Are you personally opposed to turning it over to BCI or asking them to come in for help?
For an independent
Independent
investigation.
If Dr. Wookey feels that, sure, but right now, I'm very comfortable and confident that Detective O'Connell will complete this the best as possible, and he'll give 110.
Wow.
So you're opposed to it, Sheriff?
Are you opposed to an independent investigation?
Well, at this time, I am, because I don't feel the need for it.
Mr. Limberios, do you feel need for an independent investigation?
I felt a need that the BCI should have been there that night, Matt.
Why would you not feel a need for an independent investigation? You have a sheriff's deputy who allows evidence to be destroyed. You have a coroner who rules an accidental suicide, which is an oxymoron. And you're comfortable with this investigation? Is that what you just said?
Right now, I am, absolutely. We will see where this investigation ends, but right now, Detective O'Connell is performing it, and I know he's spending a lot of hours and doing a good job right now, and that's pretty much all I can tell you right now.
Sheriff, how did the conversation go when he came to you? Because he had already made that decision, or I understand that in the grand scheme of things, he doesn't have the authority to make that decision on asking BCI to come in for an independent investigation, but he came to you with that decision and told you about it, and then you stopped him. It sounds like he's ready to turn it over.
Now, from what I understand, when I spoke with him, he didn't feel that that's how his conversation went with you that day.
Oh, okay. So we misreported it?
I don't know. I guess. I don't know. But that's what he had spoken with me. So right now, that's all I can say. Hopefully we get this thing finished and wrapped up as speedy as possible,
Okay, and
come to a conclusion.
Okay, and I had asked you whether there was any reporting that the Register had done that you took exception with. And I didn't get a response to that.
Right. At this time, I'm not going to respond to any of those emails.
Well, if there's a correction that to any inaccurate information that's been provided by the Register, I would appreciate you telling us what might have been inaccurate in our reporting so we could publish a correction.
You know what? Okay. That's no problem, but at this point, I'm not going to.
So there's nothing you know of right now.
I'm actually in the middle of a meeting with someone else, and I'm going to have to conclude.
Does it have anything to do with this investigation?
Does it have anything to do with this investigation?
The meeting you're in right now?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and who are you meeting with?
I'm meeting with Dean Henry right now.
Okay, is he available to talk with us?
Yep, absolutely. Would you like to speak with him?
Sure.
Okay, here he is.
Mr. Henry.
This is Dean Henry.
Yes, how are you?
I'm fine, sir. How are you?
Good. Thank you for responding to my email previously. I mentioned to Sheriff Overmyer that we're live on Between the Lines, and I had invited you on this program. And I wanted to ask you, what exactly is your role right now in this investigation?
I've been appointed as special prosecuting attorney to represent Dr. Wookey in the civil action, and I've been appointed special prosecuting attorney to assist with any prosecution that might arise from the criminal investigation and to provide legal counsel and assistance to law enforcement in the course of the investigation.
So you're acting as an attorney in a civil matter, but also an investigation. You're the special prosecutor in the investigation from which the civil matter is derived.
I'm not acting as anything. I've been appointed as a special prosecutor.
Is there a conflict of interest there representing Dr. Wookey and also being the special prosecutor?
No, sir.
What prompted you to be appointed special prosecutor?
A signed entry from two judges at the request of the county prosecutor, Tom Starwell.
Okay, and why do you think he asked for you to be a special prosecutor this late it's 11 months since this initial ruling was made. Why do you think?
You'd have to ask him that, sir.
Well, he must have given you some indication.
I don't speak for Mr. Starwald. Mr. Starwald filed an application with the court asking that I be appointed special prosecutor to assist in the criminal investigation. If you want to know why he did that, you can contact him and ask him directly.
Okay, but from your impression, why do you think he did it?
I just told you, if you want to know why he did that, you should
No,
call
I'm asking you, why do you think he did that?
Mr. Westerholt. I've heard your question 3 times. I've given you my answer.
Okay. Where do you think this investigation is going? When will it be complete? What exactly are you investigating?
Which one of those questions do you want me to answer first?
Okay. Where do you think this investigation is going?
The investigation is right now in the stage where we're trying to determine what occurred on the evening of Jacob Limberios' death. We have employed the use of forensic experts from the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation. We are using 2 detectives from the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office. Dr. Wilkie, the county coroner, is cooperating fully in the investigation.
So you're acting as a special prosecutor, and at the same time you're representing the participants in the original investigation that you're investigating.
I don't know if you're having a difficult time hearing me, sir.
No, I'm not.
Okay, good. Then let me say this one last time.
Okay.
I'll answer questions twice, but I'm not going to answer them a 3rd time. I have been appointed as a special prosecuting attorney to represent the county coroner, who is a public officer, a public official. I've also been appointed as a special prosecutor to provide legal counsel and assistance to the law enforcement agencies that are involved in the potential criminal investigation involving the death of Jacob Limberios.
Mr. Henry, this is Emil Whitus. Just wondering if you guys had come to a conclusion on whether you're going to seek a second exhumation of Jacob's body.
We haven't come to a conclusion on that yet.
Why would you seek a second autopsy?
We requested the family's permission to do a second exhumation and a second autopsy as part of my work in the civil case, the declaratory judgment action. The family of Jacob Limberios gave us consent to do that twice, and then thereafter withdrew their consent.
Why did they withdraw their consent?
You'd have to ask them that.
Mr. Limberios, why did you withdraw your consent?
I wanted other tests done from the BCI before. I wanted all the other testing done before they would dig up my son. He can have, he doesn't need my permission
Is that
by
correct?
law.
Is that correct, sir? He doesn't need you don't need his permission to do a second autopsy?
That's correct.
Okay, so is it your intention to go forward with a second autopsy?
I just told you that decision hasn't been made yet.
It hasn't been made. If you do go forward with a second autopsy, will Dr. Cyril Wecht be available to attend that autopsy?
I have no idea whether Dr. Cyril Wecht will be available to attend that autopsy.
Okay, if he were available and he wanted to be present and the Limberios family wanted him to be present, would he be allowed to be present during a second autopsy?
No, sir.
Okay, and why not?
I don't care to comment on the civil litigation at this point as far as what's going to happen in civil discovery.
Have you reviewed Dr. Wecht's autopsy?
I have.
And do you have any thoughts on his autopsy report?
I have lots of thoughts on Dr. Wecht's autopsy report.
Could you share any of those with us?
Do you have a specific question for me?
Can you share any of your thoughts with us about the autopsy report?
No.
Okay, Emil?
Do you think that they're legitimate?
Do you agree with the findings?
Do I agree with the findings? Dr. Wecht didn't make any finding as to cause of death in the autopsy report.
I think didn't he make a finding that it was in all likelihood a homicide?
That's not in the autopsy report, Mr. Westerhold. You need to read your documents.
Okay.
The original autopsy report made no regarding cause. Hold on, sir. If you're going to ask me questions, you should let me finish.
I'm listening.
The original autopsy report reached no conclusions regarding cause of death. A subsequent letter from Dr. Wecht.
So a supplement to his autopsy report.
Mr. Westerhold?
Yes.
If you're going to interrupt me, we're going to terminate.
Okay. Please go
So what
ahead.
are we going to do? Are you going to let me finish
Yes.
answering the question?
Yes.
Or
Please
are
go
we going
ahead.
to continue to interrupt me?
Please go ahead.
The original autopsy report did not contain a cause of death determination.
But it did say that there was no stifling pattern seen.
The subsequent letter from Dr. Wecht indicated that the possible or potential cause of death could be homicide.
Okay.
As a result of receiving that letter, which I received within, I think, a day of my appointment, my original appointment as special prosecutor, it was my decision, and I advised the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office through Detective O'Connell that we should proceed to treat this matter as a potential criminal investigation, and that is what we have done so far.
Okay, now, Mr. Henry, you say that in the civil matter. I mean, you're not sure where you're at with the autopsy, whether you wanted to go after another autopsy, but as the head of the criminal investigation now, I mean, where are your thoughts on a second autopsy? I mean, is it necessary?
I don't know if it's necessary yet.
When will you know that?
I don't know when I'll know that.
Okay, and do you have any kind of timeline in mind of completing your work as special prosecutor?
No.
Do you think it will be done before the first anniversary of Jacob Limberios' death?
No.
And what is it, is there anything particular you can share with us that might be holding it up for another month or so?
No.
Okay. Do you think Jacob Limberios committed suicide?
It doesn't matter what I think, sir. What matters is what the evidence is going to show, and ultimately a judge is going to make a decision on whether or not Dr. Wookie's determination stands or doesn't stand.
Well,
I've said from the beginning that my opinion of what occurred with Jacob Limberios is worthless. I wasn't present the night he was killed. I don't know what the circumstances were behind his death other than what I've read and what I've heard from others.
How are your responsibilities different now that you've been appointed the head of the criminal prosecution also, or I
criminal
guess
investigation.
yeah.
Prior to my appointment as a special prosecutor to assist law enforcement, my singular role was the representation of Dr. Wookie as county coroner in the civil declaratory judgment action. Now I have a dual role, for lack of a better term, and that is that I'm representing him in the civil action and I'm assisting law enforcement, legally and otherwise, with the conduct of the criminal investigation of Jacob Limberios' death.
So is this a separate investigation, or has it become a criminal investigation?
This investigation was a criminal investigation long before I ever got involved in it, and it's not separate. In fact, there's a lot of overlap between the work that I was doing for Dr. Wookie as his civil counsel and the work that I'm now doing as both his counsel in the civil case and assisting law enforcement in the potential criminal case.
Is it true that the criminal investigation was closed until coroner's inquest was reopened, and then at some point that became a dual civil criminal matter? I mean, it seems to me like it was closed. The case was closed. We have a email from, I believe it's April, that says it was closed months and months ago.
I have no idea what the Sandusky County Sheriff's Department did or what they considered as far as the case being open or closed before my appointment. From the time that I was appointed, there was an active investigation going on by the Sandusky County Sheriff's Department. The sheriff had assigned 2 detectives, one of whom is very seasoned, and a former detective with the Fremont Police Department, to the case. And virtually from the moment I learned that I was going to be appointed, I've been in daily contact with Detective O'Connell from the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office.
Detective O'Connell made a statement that he believed there was a big lie and that somebody else specifically was holding the gun when Jacob was killed.
I don't know anything about that statement or that comment.
I included that in the email I sent to you 2 days ago.
Yes, sir, I know you did. That doesn't make it so.
So are you saying he didn't say that?
No, sir, I'm saying I have no knowledge of that comment being made by Detective O'Connell. I got into the case
Did you ask Detective O'Connell about that?
I'm sorry?
Did you ask Detective O'Connell about that statement?
No, sir. I didn't ask Detective O'Connell about that. My focus in this case is what caused Jacob Limberrios' death and the method, manner, and mode of the cause of death. That's my focus right now. That's been my focus since the very first day I've gotten on this case. I'm really not interested in what everybody said before, what everybody did before, what
But you
everybody
have
was.
to be now. You're
everybody
part of
else.
the
Hold on,
criminal
sir.
investigation.
I said, let me finish or we'll terminate this conversation.
Please go ahead.
You're not gonna cut me off.
Please go ahead.
Okay. I'm not interested in anything other than getting to the bottom line on what caused Jacob Limberrios' death, if that can be done. Unfortunately, as is true in a lot of criminal cases, and particularly in criminal cases that involve the death of an individual, we may never know the full truth. What we may have is a collection of evidence, some of which is consistent, some of which conflicts with other pieces of evidence, and maybe even statements that witnesses made. And ultimately, we leave the sorting out of that to seasoned law enforcement officers and sometimes to judges and juries. So my opinion on what occurred doesn't make a hill of beans difference to anybody.
It's been suggested to you that Detective O'Connell suggested that another individual was holding the gun, and he referred to it as the big lie. Have you reviewed that suggestion that he made that statement at all with him?
I am aware that a suggestion has been made that someone else was holding the gun. That suggestion that I'm aware of didn't come from Detective O'Connell. It came from Jacob Limberrios' family and their legal counsel.
I believe it's contained in an email from Detective O'Connell.
You send me the email and I'll be happy to review it.
Okay, but you have not talked to him about that suggestion that he had made that statement.
I have not, and I have to be honest with you, I don't really care about Detective O'Connell's opinion about who may or may not have been holding the gun. My focus in this case is going to be on evidence, not on conjecture, rumor, or speculation.
But Detective O'Connell is the experienced lead investigator in this case.
That doesn't mean he's perfect, Mr. Westerholt.
Okay.
None of us are.
Right.
As I'm trying to tell you, that we have good evidence that a whole lot of people handled this gun on the day that Jacob was killed. We have evidence that Jacob handled this gun on the day he was killed. We have statements and evidence that the last person that had this gun in anyone's hand was Jacob Limberrios at the very moment immediately prior to the shot going off and people hearing a loud bang and him being shot and ultimately deceased as a result of that.
Well, now, Dean, this is Dan McGookie. I've got to call you out on that one. What evidence do you have? Tell us exactly what evidence you have of that fact.
Dan, you're going to be taking depositions of a number of witnesses.
No, you just made a statement that there's good. Let me.
I'm not going to let you interrupt me either, Dan.
All right, I'm sorry, but my question.
You're either going to let me finish or we're going to terminate this interview.
I would like to know what evidence you have to
Mr.
support the statement.
Limberrios is here, by the way.
I'd like to know, Dean, to tell.
I'm watching you on television right now.
Yeah, okay, well, thank you for watching. But I'd like to have you answer my question. What evidence do you have?
I'm not answering your question, Dan. I've told you before, it's inappropriate and unethical to try these.
No, you made a statement, and now you're gonna have to answer that question.
One more time, this conversation is over. Do you understand me?
The point is, you don't have
If I
any
get
evidence.
interrupted one more time, this conversation is over.
I don't have any other questions.
Understand
Do you
me.
have any?
All right.
I'm
All right, it's
I want an answer to
mind-boggling.
my question.
I'm sorry?
Do you understand that if I'm interrupted one more time after
We're done, I
that
think,
question,
aren't we?
this interview is over?
Yes.
What evidence does he have?
Okay.
What evidence do you have? You said you wouldn't answer that.
Will not answer that.
Okay. I know you're not interested in conjecture from your lead detective. My question is, did you have a conversation about whether or not he made that statement?
I've had several conversations with Detective O'Connell, none of which I'm going to discuss with you or anyone else.
Okay. But you do want me to send you that email?
No, sir, I don't want you to send me that email. I told you that if you send me the email, I'll review it. I haven't promised to issue a response or to do anything other than give you the courtesy of reviewing whatever you want me to review. and I will turn it over to the detectives on the case and see if it has any evidentiary value whatsoever.
So you'll turn over a statement from the detective to the detective to determine whether the statement is accurate.
Mr. Westerholt, if you
Yes.
hand me a paper bag and tell me it has something to do with Jacob Lamberios' death, it's going to go to Detective O'Connell.
So then it would seem, after you got my email, that that would be a question that you would ask the detective.
I've told you, sir, I've had many conversations with Detective O'Connell, none of which I'm going to discuss with you or anyone else.
Okay. Are you- go
Mr.
ahead.
Henry, are you considering the autopsy from Cyril Wecht? Are you considering that evidence in your criminal case?
It's not my evidence in the criminal case, but I presume it will be evidence in the criminal case and in the civil case as well.
Okay.
Are you concerned that blood-spattered shoes were thrown out at the sheriff's office the night of, or during the time period of the initial investigation?
Well, first of all, that statement assumes facts that are not entirely true.
If it were true.
And second of all, I would be concerned about the preservation of all evidence in a case that was relevant to the inquiry.
Okay, well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us today, and thank you for watching Between the Lines as well. And you will let me know if there's any inaccuracies that we should correct in our reporting or anything like that. I request that of you.
Well, Mr. Westerhold, it's not my job to make sure you do your job the right way.
I guess it's my job to make sure you do your job the right way. Thank you very much for talking with us today. Let's take a break. This is Between the Lines Live at SanduskyRegister.com.
Get in touch with your inner scientists. Transfer degrees in science, technology, engineering, math, and medicine at Terra State Community College. Start here, go anywhere. Learn more at terra.edu.
Are you the only one still using the book? Get found at firelands411.com. Half of the internet users today will use a search engine to find a business. Make sure you're found at firelands411.com, an all-local business directory with phone numbers, addresses, and more. Your customers are looking for you. Claim your free listing today at firelands411.com.
Find your passion in healthcare at Terra State Community College. Start here, go anywhere. Learn more at terra.edu.
And we're back. This is Between the Lines Live at SanduskyRegister.com. We just finished up a conversation with Sheriff Kyle Overmyer and Dean Henry, the special prosecutor in the Lamberios death investigation. That was an interesting conversation. Dan, any thoughts? And thank you, by the way, Mr. Henry, for agreeing to talk with us today, as well as you, Sheriff Overmyer.
Dean and Sheriff Overmyer, I'm going to direct these comments directly to you. I'm going to say again, as I've been personally saying on behalf of the Lamberios family for 10 months now since I've been involved, and for another month preceding me, my involvement, Mike and Shannon, directly to your office. And that is, all we want is the truth. We're not looking to necessarily be fighting, battling, arguing semantics with anybody. We want to know what happened. We want a complete and open and transparent investigation. We want to know what happened, and so this family can at least begin to grieve the loss of their son. They've been put on hold for 11 months now. It's not only unfair, it's reprehensible, and we just want to know what happened. We do not want to go forward with the depositions next week, but I guess that's the only way that we're going to be able to find out what happened. That's what I've got to say. Mike?
Mike, anything you'd like to say?
No.
Thank you for being here today. Please give our best to your wife, Shannon. Emil, anything that you'd like to say?
No?
Okay. Anything else, Dan?
Nothing further, thank you.
I guess I'd like to say thank you again, Sheriff Overmyer and Attorney Henry, for talking with us. The invitation for you to be on this program stands. You just let me know. My phone number, my cell phone number is 419-357-5051. Please call me and we'll schedule that program at your convenience. Thank you for being here with us today. This has been Between the Lines, very live at SanduskyRegister.com.